the Botched episode wrestling or Botched Wrestling podcast, episode 28. It's what we just confirmed. Can't believe we did 27 before this, but somehow we're still here. Pretty sure this is the
Still
most
kicking.
productive thing in my life, which says a lot. Yeah. Yeah, Dan. We're here. Episode 28. 28.
Yes.
10 more than the age of the girls Jerry Seinfeld used to date in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? When he was still 40. So, we're back. We're here. It's been a little bit. Been
It
a week and a
has.
half, 2 weeks. I feel like we haven't missed much, right? We were gonna we were gonna do a draft episode, but then you got caught up with helping them move buildings in Connecticut. Since the new WWE tower is done. I heard you were there just hanging out with Stephanie.
I wish.
Which bravo. But yeah, I mean, within that week and a half, 2 week period, the biggest thing was the WWE draft, right? Which we could hit on later, but that was pretty much it, right? Besides this AEW like turn of power that we're gonna talk about.
Right.
I mean, kind of slow, right? Like, kind of, or I mean, it's tough, right? Because I think we go back to comparing it, like how fast paced it felt, like leading up to Mania, and now we're kind of just like, all right, let's see what builds from there, right? So it's kind of like we're in the building blocks again, I guess you would say, of like what's actually happening, right? Would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing, right?
No, it's
Like,
expected, right? Because like they can't go at that volume like
yeah.
all year because that's not how you build a story, right? Like to build a story, you have to like fundamentally make sure all the pieces fit, and then you go. So yeah, it's been
Mhm.
good. To be honest, I haven't watched any of the AEW product. Um, I've
No.
seen like I've been catching a majority of that on the Twitter clips. I don't. Dan,
X.
I'm a grown man. I'm not gonna be calling anything X. And the last person
I
I
mean,
did,
it's the name of the company.
yeah.
So
Well, the last person I called X, he would bark afterwards, and he's no longer with us. So I'm not disrespecting his name. Um, do you know who I'm talking about?
let's just keep moving.
Oh, just tell him then.
Sure.
So
Either way, you would see it on social media.
on Twitter, and yeah. I mean, let's kick this off by talking about AEW, huh? You want to
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
So we have a power feud going on right now, correct?
As of last night, yeah. Looks like it.
With the elite and their buddy from New Japan
Mm-hmm.
basically taking over the company, trying to be a 2024 version of Hall and Nash. I don't know. What are we doing? Like, I don't like NWO. I don't. I get it, like because they did get a bump in their ratings. I believe your friend, your Western New York colleague, Brandon Thurston, had something on this. Is that correct?
He did. I mean, they had a bump. They were um, up 3% from last week.
Yes.
They are um, down 17% from last year at this time. At least this episode, but in the demo, they're up 4% from last week.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so let's see. You know, they are. Let's look. It is Yeah, I mean, they're just kind of coasting along. This is their sweet spot a little bit. They had a little bit of bump, but it didn't sustain. Right. This is their kind of their sweet spot. Their ratings from yesterday, according to Brandon, is their highest since February. But
It's
that high was only 800 and something thousand.
yeah, I saw a couple places call this one of the lowest rated episodes of Dynamite in AEW history.
This last one,
That's what they said at 703.
I, yeah, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's true or not. I would have to dig in a little bit deeper, but 703 lowest. Well, actually, yeah, I guess that's right. I guess that is right. I guess
Which
that
is
is right.
tough, right? Because like this is supposed to be the product that's carrying your company, right? With like Adam Cole hurt for a bit, now he's kind of back. MJF, like we talked about before, topping on the pod, had to get surgery. Like,
I mean, it is their lowest, but that comparison, that data point, from what I can tell, is based on monthly average. So this is only the first episode in the
right?
month.
Yep.
But yes, they have work to do to get that up. They're based on their monthly average going back like in April, their average was 754,000. In March, their average was 781. 817 in February, 820. So yes, the line is definitely going like this for sure. But looking at 2023, their average was 870 for the year. So they're down. For sure, they're down. So I guess that is right.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's still the beginning of the month, but um,
I mean, like you said, well, let's look since May has just started. Again, per Brandon's spreadsheet, which is just amazing, all the info on this. In April, they were down 12% from April of 2023 for the month. You know, in March, it was down 10% from March of 23. So the year over year is down 10 to 13% based on this. Um, and that's not great either because in 2023, they were down each month year over year. So they're down on top of being down for sure.
yeah.
So
So
when you're looking, if you're looking at like a 2 year graph, it would just be a slow slope down
okay,
for sure.
yeah. So there's
For
probably
sure.
some outliers in there, right? Um,
Sure.
Brandon has on his Twitter right now. Once again, not calling it X. Um, top table telecast in program or P18 to 49 last night. First, Celtics and Heat, TNT, 0.8, 2.46, closer to 2.5 total views. Night Stars, 0.39, 1.2. Dynamite, 0.24, 703. Gutfield, 0.18, 2.47, closer to 2.5. Gutfield on Fox News, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, yeah, they Gutfield beat Rampage according to what I'm looking at.
Well, and technically, if you're looking at viewership, they beat Dynamite too. But
Yeah, I mean, except it's not same time, so it's hard to do
no,
that.
right? But yeah, and then Celtics Heat on True TV was 0.17 with 397, and then Rampage was 0.15 on TBS with 431K.
Yeah, I mean, and this goes back to what we were talking about last time. Like, even though the numbers, when you look at a bigger picture, don't look great, and when you look at like where it's been and to where it is today, but still ranking number 3 in the time slot for the day up against the NHL and the NBA playoffs, for a cable company, they're not going to be unhappy with that. They really
No,
aren't.
no, I don't think not for right now. If they have bigger goals that are not out to the public, mm, eventually, like this is only their fifth year, right? So like they're still kind of young. So, but it's like if you continuously see this downward trend, right? Like even if it's slowly, it's still down, or you can't get it to where like it evens out. So like you can predict what you're gonna get every week. I think you're gonna eventually run into a problem.
Maybe, but if you continue to rank in the top three every week, I don't know how
Yeah,
much
but you're
that's going
not
to
gonna
matter.
continue to rank in the top three if it still continues on that slope. That's what I mean. Like if they could stay top three, that they'll survive, right? Like
Yeah,
they're gonna survive.
yeah.
But if it continues to where like, all right, they got this one little peak, but then all of a sudden it's continuing down. Like I think eventually there's gonna be some answers, or some questions that have to get some very detailed answers by Tony and everybody involved with the business. Um, I just think so because they're gonna see. But I think it's gonna help though that Raw is gonna be on Netflix soon, right? So then they'll only be competing against NXT and SmackDown then,
Yeah,
which should
and
help if they're trying to compare across the segments, right? Like because then they could say, well, SmackDown had this on Blonde or whatever it was on, and NXT had this, but like should be interesting. Um, try to see right here real quick. Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about it. Like, what do you think about the angle that they're trying to pull off right now?
I only watched a few. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it live or anything. I saw some of the clips this morning. Um, right now it's so preliminary to know if it's going to get good or not. Like it's predictable is the problem, right?
Yes.
Today it's predictable. It was predictable that Kenny, coming back was going to get attacked by the Bucks and Jack Perry and all that.
Well, because they've already
Um,
did this, what, two times that they attacked Kenny? Though, like, the other time was when he was going against Hangman for, like, who was in charge of the Elite. Remember?
yeah,
And I think they
yeah.
started AEW by having some type of feud with him, or some type of d- dust up, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, I could see that.
Um, so it really depends on where they go with it, right? Like, and the problem is, and this is always a problem for all of wrestling companies, is you you're always basically recreating a story that's already been told. It's just a matter of how well are you putting a spin on it that makes it a little bit different, right? Like you think back to like TNA Aces and Eights, right? Like that was an NWO type story, right? And anybody can say anything they want that it wasn't, but it was a type story, but it had a spin to it, right? Like it took a little, Sons of Anarchy feel to it, and it also it was a little bit more mysterious than the NWO at first, right?
Right.
The NWO, once they unveiled Hogan with Hall and Nash, the NWO wasn't secretive anymore on who was what. Well, that's when it became the NWO, but there wasn't a lot of secret to it anymore. It was very in your face. Aces and Eights was very secretive for a while, right? With who was in, who wasn't in, who were mystery people. So they just have to find a way to retell this story of a quote unquote shot caller in the business side who is now also in the wrestling side, like Eric was and like Vince McMahon was. And how do you do that differently? So we'll see. It's very preliminary, but it, as of last night, it's just very predictable, and who knows where it's going. Hopefully, it doesn't go exactly where everybody thinks it will. That they need a twist. They need to swerve with it. That's not expected. And honestly, I was thinking about this just randomly. The real payoff, which will never happen and could never happen, would be Punk coming back. That's the real payoff. And they can't get that. So how do you pay it off better or even close to similar without that? And you can't right now. Um, I suppose you could, depending on his status for the future, you could try to work MJF into a way, back into this to give him, he's going to get a pop when he comes back no matter what. Everybody's going to love it when he comes back. So maybe you could use him. Maybe you could use him and Adam Cole if Adam Cole ever heals.
Well,
But that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head because the real payoff would have been Punk, and that just can't happen, obviously. So
nope, because they screwed that up.
yeah, they would have had gold if they could have figured this out with him and Jack Perry and the Bucks and FTR. As much as we don't care to see the Bucks and FTR anymore, putting Punk back into that mix, into that equation, would have made it good, right, with them.
It wouldn't be so bad with the Bucks and FTR involved if you got Punk back, right? Like you could
That's
have
what I'm saying.
actually stomached them, even though they're not great. You could have been like, okay, well, this is long-term storytelling at its finest right here. We're gonna get this, right? So yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to quite a few podcasts this week, like Busted Open, or that's the radio show, but Busted Open and 83 Weeks and whatnot. I have a fear that, like, Perry's gonna have the heat no matter where he goes for a while now, right? Because he's the guy that got Punk fired. That's how every, like, cult CM Punk fan is gonna view Jack Perry. As
Yeah.
he's the dude that got Punk fired over something stupid, and Punk would still and we would still have Punk. We wouldn't lose Punk to WWE if this didn't occur, right? Like that would have been that's how everybody views him, right? Like they don't really view him as like a great in-ring talent, but like when it comes to that, like that's his notoriety right now. That's why he's the outcast. That's why his shirts are all sold out because people buy things that they love to hate, right? We've heard that from Eric Bischoff how many years. They'll spit at you, they'll throw stuff at you, they'll swear you, they'll call you any name they want. But first opportunity they'll get, they'll be up at the bench buying all your shirts if they can. And
Yep.
and not to bring WWE in it, but how many years did we get Cena sucks chance, and then every show you would see at the end of every month, Cena was the number one seller in merchandise.
Yeah.
Religiously, like nonstop. So I think Jack.
Well, yeah, because wrestling fans want it as, if nothing else, it's memorabilia each
Correct.
time, right? Like you don't have to like the guy, you don't have to hate the guy or the wrestler, the faction, whatever. Like sometimes you just want it because, I mean, right? The NWO shirts are still a top seller to this day, and that has nothing to do with whether or not you liked it or not. It's because it was part of a golden era of wrestling, and everybody wants a piece of it. Like craziness.
Yeah, it is, right? Like it yeah, it just so I think Perry can survive with the heat that he's getting, right?
I think it helps him actually at this point because he wasn't getting anywhere as a babyface.
No. So
And
like it gives him something. Like it
right,
like it
and when they did his original like heel turn and it was terrible. This is actually something that people can get emotional about to some degree, whether it's because of, unfortunately for AEW, it might be because of the CM Punk thing in a lot of the cases, but it's better than being like just people being meh about you.
yeah. Well, so here's I have two fears with this. Number one being the Bucks. Number two, Okada's basically a mid card guy, if that, at AEW right now. And to compare it to something, Tama Tonga is the hottest he's ever been in his wrestling career within 2 weeks at WWE.
Yeah, but you're not comparing apples to apples with
No,
that
but
either. Like,
I'm comparing what happens when you do wrestling right.
no, yeah, but that's obvious, right?
But
Like that's
that's what I'm saying. I feel like TNA back then had the talent to pull off the whole aces and eights, like to take over the industry. Like we're gonna screw corporate. We're gonna do whatever we want. We're in charge now. I don't think I like I said before. I think Perry could get by with this based on how much people love to hate him right now. I think he's protected just by that hatred. I think they got to bring somebody else in because I don't think the Bucks and Okada can continuously carry this idea of like they're the ones in charge. Like I just like I something about like I think Okada can skate through this longer than the Bucks. I think we've just seen so much of the Bucks flip flop in AEW that this just I have a fear that the Bucks are gonna bore this out faster than what was actually expected.
yeah.
Like just because of how because I mean let's be real, like that CM Punk podcast with Ariel, like you saw all the big commentators and everybody talking about AEW on Twitter afterwards. The Bucks took a lot of that heat, especially
Yeah.
when that Kenny video came out and said, "Yeah, I spoke to him. We both aired our grievances. I was trying to protect the dog first. Sometimes guys just have to fight, and then they just walk away and shake hands." And it seemed like if you were to close your eyes and listen to that speech that was basically given during the Street Fighter tournament, like you could picture CM Punk sitting there and saying the exact same thing because it's true. Like Punk
Right.
said that before. Sometimes you just have to fight it out. Sometimes two guys just have to get in there, fight it out, shake hands afterwards, and walk away because that's what a business does. So, like, the Punk podcast with Ariel, the heat the Bucks got, Perry's using it the right way, Kenny coming out and saying he basically made up with Punk. So you know the Bucks are the only one and Perry that hasn't. It's kind of like it just gives them a bad look externally for the Bucks, and it just makes me more concerned. Like, how long do you think they'll be able to make this last? Like this whole corporate authority hostage takeover thing, right? Like, do you foresee them adding someone else in there to like extend this through, or do you think it's just going to be the four of them until Kenny gets back? Like, do you see them bringing in Hangman? Like,
I'm sure they probably will at some point. I mean, they're gonna. That's that. Like what you're talking about too is like what I was saying that there needs to be something,
yeah,
some sort of swerve or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Like, there has to be something that kind of like propels it, right? Because it's gonna get to a
mhm.
point where it's like lackluster. Of the Bucks come out, they talk crap about Tony. They run this business now. Tony's in a closet somewhere broadcasting the show, still not realizing he has a neck brace on and still going back and forth like a penguin with the brace on. Like it's kind of like that's gonna die out, right? Like that's gonna die out quick. of like if that's the same thing every time, every time, every time. So it's interesting to see like what could they do. I don't think there's any big name free agents that are out there now. The only one that was left out for like the last 2 months was McIntyre, but we both said that Drew wasn't going to go there. We
No.
we both, especially with Class at the Castle like on its way, right? Like there's no way he was going to end up there. I don't know. It's tough because you gotta like it's like I'm sitting here thinking, and I don't even know what I would do. Like because you can't like I don't know like how like what would this do for you if every other week it was them attacking Tony, then Kenny came back and stood up for the business, and then they attacked Kenny, and then they're back to harassing Tony. Like, would that get you through a Wednesday and
No.
Saturday show, or Wednesday Friday show?
Uh, well, Saturday too. That show's not gone yet.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, none of it would get me. None of that would get me through long term.
Yeah. So
That's
what
what
would
I'm saying. Like they have to figure out a swerve, whether it's a person, um, like it doesn't like the Tony thing. Like I don't know that Tony's going to continue to get attacked. I think that was just for a way to continue this right now and get Kenny back, right?
yeah.
Uh, you know, I I don't know what they'll do. Like you said, there's no big free agents. There's nothing we know of. Like I said, the only thing I could think of was like an MJF return to come back and try to put these guys in their place. But I don't even know exactly how he does that unless he's got people with him. So
Or if he teams up with Osprey, they put that bad blood behind them. But then it's like once again to go back to my point of like, can the Bucks carry this? Do you think the Bucks can keep up with Kenny and Osprey in the ring?
I think Kenny and Osprey can carry anybody through if they need to. Yes.
See, but I like, yeah, that's a better phrased question of what I was asking. But at the same time, I hate hearing that because then I feel like we don't get the full potential out of Kenny and Osprey, right? Because like they might not be able to bring it to that next level just because they got to make sure the Bucks can stay with them, and that's like part of
May-
the concern. I thought of like, can the Bucks handle this? Like, yeah, they can do
Maybe, but
the
that's
camera stuff, fine, whatever, blah blah. But it's like,
yeah, maybe, but that's the reality of wrestling. Like
no, I
sometimes you have
know,
guys that are on, you have guys that are on levels that nobody gets to their level, with the exception of one or two other people. So
yeah,
you're
but
always, or 90% of the time, you're stuck with one person in the group is making, or one person in the match is making the other people better.
no, that's for sure. But I'm just usually if you have multiple parties involved in the biggest storyline of your company, supposed to be the hottest storyline of company, like Kevin Dashy used to say, like there would be times that he would go out there with Sean and he could just close his eyes because they both do what they were gonna do, right? Like they both could get to that next level together. And I just have a fear if the Bucks can't get to that next level the way that Osprey and Kenny can, is that gonna kill this storyline even faster? I guess if that's the end result of like where this goes, right? Like, are people just gonna be like, all right, well, this kind of sucks, like, but like it, but that all depends, right? Like, what's the end goal? Like, what's the end result of them telling the story? Like, is it gonna eventually be the Bucks and Kenny getting back together, and then they all turn on Okada, and then Okada brings his people in from New Japan, and then you kind of have a Forbidden Door every week, which is not a Forbidden Door anymore. Then, I mean, there's the dozen different things that they could do, right? But I think they have to make sure they hit this correct every week, or it's just gonna get stale fast, right? Would you say, Dan?
Yeah, I don't have the same concern you have about um
The Bucks.
yeah, and the match like ruining the story. Like if they don't have a good match, they don't have a good match, but I don't necessarily think it derails the story. I'm just less concerned about that than you are. I see your point, I don't think it's as big of a problem.
So yeah, so I mean, um, yeah, and I guess to jump on from the all elite EVPs, why does Jericho look like somebody's drunk grandpa? Like, what are we
A rough one for him lately again.
like? Not even like just what he looks like in his trunks, but like what he's been doing, right, in the ring. Like,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
what, like, do you think Tony will ever sit Jericho down and go, look, we actually need somebody to do the GM type role? Would you want to do this? You could pick your spots of when you get back in the ring, but realistically, we want you to be the GM type role, right? Like that's what, um, like that's what I would think. Because like Jericho is the perfect guy to put in between Tony and everybody else, or put in between Tony and like the storylines that are going on when you need somebody to be out there because he could still give you something in the ring a little bit. For instance, for everybody that's just paying attention to audio and not video, I just sent Dan the clip of the hardcore match that Jericho had on Dynamite. I forget who he had this with, but oh, Shibata, right? He had this with Shibata,
I think so. Yeah.
and there's a part in the match where Shibata has the garbage can stacked on him. Shibata sitting crisscross applesauce on the mat, and then gets up and basically walks down Jericho to the corner. And Jericho was swinging at him with the kendo stick. He stops. Shibata starts headbutting him, um, with the garbage can on. I mean, and Will Ospreay's still gonna sit there and tell you this is why the best wrestlers in the world are at AEW. I just like that. Like that's the type of stuff I have issues with. Like it. It's kind of like that quote from Batman, right? If you stay along too, if you stay around too long, you're gonna live long enough to become the villain. And I feel like that best describes like what's going on with Jericho's wrestling career right now, right? Because I think prior to like AEW first 2 years in AEW, like people would say like in some people's debates, Jericho could be seen as top five at all time, right? Probably
Yeah.
to some people. How do you keep that same opinion after what we just saw on Reddit? Like
I
it,
don't know. I mean,
it's gonna
you're.
hurt his legacy after a while.
I don't know. One match is going to hurt his legacy. I
The
think you're
last
being a
three and a
little.
half years.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're being a little extra critical about some of that stuff. Like,
Okay, when's
guys
the
have
last
stupid.
when's the last good AEW Jericho match?
I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't been watching it that consistently,
No,
but all
don't
I'm
worry.
telling
I'll wait. Go ahead.
I'm just telling you that that match or that part of that match doesn't make me think his legacy is ruined.
I
Like
didn't say that. I said if he stays too long, it's gonna be.
you just you just said that kind of match ruins his
I
legacy.
said
You
it could
literally
ruin the
just said
legacy.
this.
Pay attention to the quote there, Dan. Jesus.
paying attention just fine. You're
Ugh,
being extra
I need a new
critical about it.
co-host. I need a new co-host.
What? Okay. What about the food fight matches you see in WWE towards the holidays every year? Does that ruin the legacy of guys they put in those matches?
First of
Or
all,
potentially?
our Truth is in that match, and it's brilliant every year because our Truth's a legend. Is he not?
So is the New Day. Like, does that ruin anything for the
The
New Day?
burritos box. I'm sorry. Did Jericho ever have his own
They had,
box of
they
cereal?
had
He did it.
no, he had the list.
That's
They
fine.
had
I can't eat a list.
um
I can eat bootios.
they were just frosted
It
Cheerios.
doesn't matter.
Uh
It said bootios on the box, Dan. It was delicious.
they had Ciampa in that match one time and Gargano in that
Did they
match
have
one
Ciampa in
time.
that match? Let me.
Yes. I'm pretty sure against the New Day he was there.
Or
Like,
or your favorite, the wedding that we witnessed.
oh my god. Yeah, but there is nobody in the wedding that was of significance other than our truth.
Thank you.
And
See, you do
and
that a
that
lot. You speak to a tone and you forget that our Truth, the young veteran that he is.
yes, the John Cena loving
Yeah.
childhood
Oh
hero.
yeah. Oh, but no, I don't know. I'm just afraid that Jericho's getting past of where like he should probably get because like he would be the perfect person. Like if you were doing like a surprise GM thing, don't have it be Kenny. I think that's too expected. Have Jericho be it. Have him like after the next time he gets beat, he says I'm taking some time off, and then all of a sudden they come back in a week or two, and Tony's like, "That's fine if you guys gonna take over this company, then I have somebody for you guys to deal with." And then Jericho walks out, and he brings 3 or 4 friends with him, and then Jericho's like the new kind of corporate authority. Then, like he still has it on the mic. I don't know. I was always a fan of his. Like growing up, like I had every Jericho figure I could possibly find. When I did career mode on the WCW, WWF, WWE games, I always had Jericho. I always used him first before anybody. Still to this day, he's one of the characters that I download from my, my creation vault. I just, I, it's a personal concern of mine that he just might be sticking around way too long. That's all, I guess. But it seems to be a constant discussion on the score circle as well. Like that, there's similar people are sharing that same. Hey, let's not stick around too long here, buddy, because you deserve to go out at like a high, not getting beat up by a garbage can. Like that's it, Dan. Yeah, don't need you to shit on everything, but
Not shitting on everything, but
you shit
also
on
like
everything.
I'm not taking my wrestling opinion from Reddit either.
No, but I like to
Like,
get involved with the community, Dan. They follow us.
okay, that part of the community is the worst part of it.
No, the worst
We
part
talked
of it
about
is
this
in North
4
Tonawanda.
episodes ago.
The worst part of it is North Tonawanda.
We talked about this 4 episodes ago. Like, that's the toxic part of the wrestling
Some
community.
of it is, some is good, good questions. So like good trivia stuff and like good stories that people publish from things that are found put it in fast. But there's a lot that gets toxic. But you just mute those individuals, and then that all goes away from the post. I still use it because I still enjoy it from time to time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like what would get you back to watching besides MJF? Is there anything that would get you back to watching AEW regularly?
Not that I can think off the top of my head, unless they had some good swerve to this story. Like, otherwise, like, I'll just continue to check in on it on social media. And if something catches my eye, then I'll start watching again. But no, off the top of my head, MJF's the only thing I can think of that I'd be interested in seeing for
Agreed.
now. Um,
Agreed.
unless something changes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pumped Swerve got the title, but it's weird
Yeah.
he was already defending it night one. Like they didn't do any presentation or anything for him. It's just kind of like they tuned in air and he was going. And I get it because I believe Tony said they did that because of the basketball game that was on beforehand. That they wanted to get a hot lead in from the basketball game. So I get it. I just would prefer them to do something a little bit different since it's his first night with the belt. But he definitely deserves having the title. So kudos to Swerve. Um, yeah, I mean, and just to give one final update, it's out there that MJF's original plan was to go through rehab, correct? And then he was gonna see how far he could get with that and how far in the recovery path he could get through. Unfortunately, it turns out he was having no recovery whatsoever with that shoulder. So he had to have surgery on his left shoulder to fix it. I guess the Russell purists have it being the original plans were MJF aiming for a March return, and that's when he bet with Tony in Boston to discuss the creative plans. However, that's soon to take a drastic turn, and now he's out indefinitely with no timetable. And like you said, you saw the video of him at the Comic Con, which I believe was the Chicago Comic Con, with the fan, and his arm was in the sling, correct?
Yep.
So that's kind of rough for them right now because that would definitely bump those numbers up quite a bit if he was returning every week for sure. Um, I mean, it would be anywhere from like 50,000 to like 100,000 extra views. I would have to say just off the bat, and that's
Yeah.
minimum. I think it would even end up being higher than that, but safe to say, I think that's what it would at least start at. So that's a bummer. But hopefully he returns soon, or returns when his body's ready, um, and he's able to go back because he was killing it for a while. And see, but now this makes me wonder. Like, do you think this counts as injury time on the extension of his contract, or
I don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure that anybody really knows his contract situation because he was supposed to be up January 1st and
correct?
he wrestled through that.
Correct.
So if he didn't sign an extension, I know there's been rumors back and forth that he did, but if he didn't sign an extension, then this is it.
Yeah.
Like he, in theory, can just decide when he's ready what he's doing, but I don't, I don't know. If he signed one, then I would assume, unless he specifically negotiated no injury time added, which would be stupid for them to agree to, then I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's gonna be something, right? Like, because it's gonna be, like you said, the bidding war of 2024. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's tough. Their wrestling junkie has an article that I came across the other day that I wanted to make mention of. This is back from December 19th of 2023. He said, MJF insists he hasn't re signed with AEW, but I want to stay, was the quote they took from him. Uh, so take that for what it is.
Yeah.
But then he also finished it out by saying, I think fans leak out things that they want to be true. I love AEW and I want to stay in AEW. After this pay per view, it's time to assess this situation. So, right there, like, assess the situation could be, well, I do love AEW. This is where I got my shot, but, like, I can't turn down this contract from WWE, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that could be
Right.
the whole assess this situation thing. So it'll be interesting to see. Um, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be wild, right? Like because MJF might be the do or die for them, right? That's like that might be it. Like that might be the okay, then we see a drastic drop if like that. But we'll see. So that's all I had for AEW. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about in AEW, Dan?
Yeah.
Not Goldberg supposedly lying about the conversations he had with Tony, or Tony supposedly lying about the
I,
conversations that he had with Goldberg.
yeah, I mean, I don't think he lied as much as he just changed his view, right? Like, I think both statements can probably be true.
Yeah,
Goldberg says today it's cheesy. Tony says a year ago when they talked, he was very interested. Well, he probably was.
my thought is, yeah. No, go
I mean,
on.
it was a lot better a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
You know?
and my thought is this could have started some bad blood because Goldberg could have probably went there, heard what everybody at AEW was getting paid. He walks in there like, "Oh, I'm Bill Goldberg. I was 250-0 at WCW," and Tony really doesn't give Bill what he wants. Then that just adds a little bit of ammo to Bill being like, "Well, yeah, we talked, but I wasn't a fan," type thing, right? Like, so like it could be a number of things of, you know, the way it's not working out. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It's always good to see those type of back and forth, you know, conversations. I'm glad Tony didn't hurt himself when he was talking about it, and it's, just the way he was bending in a foam deck brace. I'm sure. But yeah, so let's jump to the Endeavor owned product, to
Okay. The TKO product?
the TKO product, the Dwayne the Rock Johnson part-time job gig, WWE wrestling. Big event this past 2 weeks, Dan. Big event.
Big event.
Do you get any excitement by the WWE draft?
Not really.
Is it just because you're dead inside, or just because it really doesn't do anything for you?
It just doesn't do anything for me. I don't like, in general, I understand why they do it, but I don't like brand split. I never
Yeah.
really have. I understand it's a lot more fluid now than it used to be, and I'm happy about that portion of it.
Yep.
But otherwise, I don't like brand splits. I don't like two champions, two sets of belts for each show. So the draft does nothing for me because usually it's relatively predictable and it doesn't really mean much. Like they don't even do Survivor Series with the brand split anymore,
Right.
which also I'm not complaining about because War Games the last few years has been great. So I don't want that to change
Phenomenal.
back to a brand split. But if they went to a brand split, that would be okay. But I like what they've been doing instead. So with all that put together, like it to me, it is what it is. It's just pomp and circumstance.
Yeah. I dig it. I always thought the draft was pretty cool because it just threw like I guess a real like sports like aspect into it. Um, I didn't get like overly excited for it like I am the Raw after Mania, but I thought it could always be something cool for them to introduce like somebody that they were keeping in their back pocket, right? Like somebody that they had as a surprise that nobody knew about. Like like I felt like they could have probably did if they signed Jade later than they did. Like thought it could have been a cool aspect that all of a sudden like Stephanie's out there baking the SmackDown call, and then all of a sudden Jade's like bright light and the storm hits, and it's just Jade standing there in the dark, and Stephanie goes, "SmackDown drafts Jade Cargill. Good luck, everybody." And then that's kind of like how they end it, right? Like if they did
Mm-hmm.
something like that, like I thought they could get a crazy. crazy carryover from like one night to the next just by doing something like that. I don't think we've ever had surprises at the WWE draft that I can remember. Can you recall
No,
any?
the biggest surprises have always just been whether or not an NXT person gets
Yeah.
drafted, or like occasionally they brought in like I think one year didn't they like somebody drafted Brock even though he wasn't listed anywhere. Like I think
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yes. Yeah, so you kind of like knew like Brock was coming back that year, right? Because they kind of gave it away. You just didn't know when. Like,
And last year's draft was it last year's draft or last year's draft we didn't like, or at least I didn't like, because remember, like the first thing they did was split Cody and Roman, and we were like, "What the hell is going on here?"
exactly. Yeah, we had a whole podcast episode about that.
Yeah, so like sometimes it hurts more than it helps. I think. I mean, obviously they did fine with that whole story, but like I don't know. It's just it's kind of like their season premiere. They do the
Yep.
season premiere and they make it a big deal, but it's really nothing, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a marketing tool, which is fine. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't get all that excited for it.
Yeah, so some of the big so real quick, the top 5 supposedly best shocking WWE draft picks by WWE themselves has said when Big Man drafts Rock to SmackDown, that pretty much became his show that day, right? March 25th,
Um,
2002. Paul Heyman is drafted from SmackDown to Raw.
oh, I remember that.
March 22nd, 2004. And do you remember who was on stage with him at the time?
Eric.
Eric Bischoff.
Yeah.
And Bischoff is just looking at, and Paul is in a hard neck brace. Take note, Tony. Batista is drafted from Raw to SmackDown on June 30th, 2005. That's kind of when like they kind of gave Batista the green light to carry SmackDown for a while, right? Because that was under Teddy Long, I think, at the time, that 2005 era. Because that was right when I was graduating high school, 2005, 2006. Yeah.
Maybe I don't remember for sure, but maybe. I mean, I also remember. I don't know if it's. I don't want to spoil this list, but I do remember
Yep.
the
Yeah.
year
Teddy
that
Long. Yep.
Undertaker got drafted and changing shows, and I remember they went to the backstage and he was pissed, right, that he got drafted to a different show. So
They
like there was that.
they technically didn't put that in the top 5.
I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
remember that because it was like a big thing, and that was when he was like biker taker, and it was just a big problem.
Yeah. Rey Mysterio is drafted from SmackDown to Raw, June 23rd, 2008. I kind of remember that because that was after his. Was that after the he got the title?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember why that would have been a big deal either, but that's okay.
Yeah, because I think he had the title at the time. Oh, because he was the number 1 pick of Triple H, and instead of Mark Henry. Yep, and I think that was when they gave Mysterio a shot at Batista in the title, I believe. And then John Cena is drafted from SmackDown to Raw, June 6, 2005. And this was he was drafted by our favorite person in the podcast business,
Eric Bischoff.
Eric Controversy Bischoff. So that's cool. That's just a quick little top 5 that they put together. That's pretty cool. Anytime Paul Heyman's involved, I love it. So can't complain there. But yeah, I mean, I had the list up. Let me see if I still got this somewhere. Yeah, so I won't go through all these, but just the big names. Raw got Damian and Becky and Awesome Truth. Imperium, Damage Control, Punk, Braun Strowman. So I guess that's technically a surprise, right? Because he was back healthy, and he looked twice the size. So, he's on that VJ Singh diet right now, just that deer antler. Drew McIntyre's on Raw, obviously because Punk's on Raw. Final Testament. I would just send the. I would send. I was thinking about this when I was screwing around with GM mode the other night. I I would just send Final Testament to NXT for a while, and I would just let them run through people there for a while. Have them just stack some wins. Um, you know, maybe touch the title one or two times, but just stack wins. To be honest, I thought this was kind of weird because I think you were over when they did this, but Seth Rollins got drafted to Raw as well, so maybe that's a good sign that he's going to be back sooner than we expected. Hopefully, Braun Breaker, Liv, Ricochet, Sheamus, all to Raw. New Catch Republic to Raw. I'm very happy about that. And they even did picks after Raw ended. So there was 6 picks done when Raw ended, and there was 4 picks done when SmackDown ended. So that was cool. SmackDown highlights: Cody, Bailey, A-Town Down Under, Logan, Jade, KO, The Pride. I really don't like that stable name. I really don't. Tiffy Stratton, Shinsuke, which seems to be lost in all of this. Chelsea Green and Piper, but Chelsea's also challenging for the NXT title for the women's as well, so that's pretty cool. Just to have her bounce back and forth, be a veteran down there, and make sure everybody's ready. I think she can add a lot to that NXT roster. Candace in India, I would just send them to NXT. I don't think they're really doing anything right now. DIY, I would also send to NXT and just have them bounce back and forth. Once again, the other thing I was screwing around with on GM mode because I only sleep 4 hours a night. Bianca, Carmelo, Orton, Nia, LA Knight, the Bloodline as a whole.
Yeah, as a whole. Well, a whole 2 people.
Whole 3 if you count Paul, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
AJ, Andrade, Baron, the OC, but it's like the OC was just on NXT and they did a terrible match for night 2 of Spring Breakin'. Yeah, I mean it's cool. Like it throws, like you said, it's a good like marketing campaign, right? Like it's a good push of like, hey, look at this spectacular event we're putting on Friday and Monday night. Tune in to see where your favorite person's gonna be, what show you're gonna be watching then. The data nerd in me would like to see if this actually changes like the viewership of the different shows. Like if Punk were to get drafted to SmackDown, would that drastically raise everybody that was watching SmackDown or vice versa? So it's cool. I mean, I get why they do it. It's good to see Dragunov get pulled up to the main roster. I don't think he'll get a push right away because he's not the size of the guy that they are looking for, but I think he could put on a lot of good matches up there, so that'd be cool. I don't know. I think they could do a lot with it. Like I said before, I think they could add surprises to it, right? And like have it kind of steamroll into the next show. But then they always have a group that are like rolling free agents, right? They'd had that for a while with Brock. Brock basically said he was going to go to whatever show he wanted to go to. There was a couple of people. I think Ronda did that as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't see anything made mention about that lately, but it'd be something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, would you do anything differently with the draft if you're trying to use it as more of a production tool? Like, would you would you have it like correlate to anything down the road, or would you just, I don't know. Like
I think it's hard to do that because the only way to do anything to correlate it is to be more strict about the brand split. And then
yeah, and then that's downhill.
I think that limits you
Yeah.
too much. Um, yeah, it just limits you way too much with the way this all works now. So I mean, it is what it is. It's a way to shake up rosters a little bit, and that's kind of what they want to do because even though the boundaries are looser than they used to be, they still sort of stick to their brands for the most part, with the exception of the big names go back and forth. So I think it's just a way to switch up your rosters every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, it's
keeps your GMs a little relevant, but even the GMs show up on both shows.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, you're right. I just think it's um I I think it's adequate for like a one-off event that you do every year. But I do feel like there's some untapped potential from it though that they could use to bring people in if they really wanted to, right? Like, but then again, it's like they've they've had so many other shows that they done that with, of like how they're bringing people in. For instance, like how they brought Punk in this year, like that type of thing, right? So it's like they might not use the, like, internally they might not view the draft that way, right? Like they just might
right,
view the draft as like a one time like event spectacular. Let's go out there, shape up the rosters, and go from there and call it a day, right? That type of thing.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it's understandable. I still think they could do more with it, but yeah, it is what it is right now. I guess I would say that best describes that. Right, Danny boy? Um, Other news. Did you see Drew's been working with a broken elbow?
I did know that he heard it overseas, right?
He heard it at
Um,
WrestleMania. He suffered a fractured elbow.
oh, I thought he heard it overseas, but yeah. So,
That's wild.
um, yeah,
I guess he's, well. So the story that he's telling is when when he got his legs swept out from under him, the way he came down, like that's what broke it by Punk. So he's been taping it up every night with the European tour, and there are pictures of him with like the sleeve on, like just to keep it compressed or locked in or whatever. But um, yeah, I mean that's crazy. That's, his pain threshold must be insane. Um, like I couldn't even imagine right now what that would
yeah,
even feel like. Um, cause like how does he pick people up? Like just extending it, I would probably scream. Like that's insane. Um, but yeah, once again, these guys are friggin' superheroes. Um, so yeah, I mean, and then Backlash this weekend, Dan. Small card,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
5 matches.
It was a small card in Australia too, wasn't it?
I think,
Well, no, because they had the elimination chamber matches, but
yeah, yeah, small card. Yeah. So
well, I think they definitely are trying to shorten their pay per view times, right? Or their excuse me, their PLE times.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with that as well. And like, how much do you think this depends on like what they have going in? are going on right now, right? Because they do have quite a few people hurt. Like, so do you think this is them just putting on like a like a carry on show? Like this show's just to get us to the next show kind of thing. Like we can plant some seeds here or there, but
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, let's do a prediction of it since there's only five. This isn't gonna take us long. Um,
And four of them are championship matches.
yeah, that's wild. So Kabuki Warriors versus Bianca and Jade. Are we thinking that goes on first, or are we thinking Bloodline KO and Orton on first?
No, I don't think. Well, the five matches.
So here's the five, and you tell me the order that you think. Okay. So we have the women's tag team match, Kabuki Warriors versus Bianca and Jade. We have the Bloodline versus KO and Orton. We have the women's championship triple threat, Bailey versus Tiffany Stratton versus Naomi. We have the world heavyweight championship, Damian Priest versus Jey Uso, and the undisputed Cody versus AJ.
Okay. I think it starts with Jay and Damien.
Ooh, that's ballsy pick. I kind of like
If you're
that.
not last, if you're not last, you want to be first.
That's true. Yep.
It would either be that. I think it's either going to be that or the women's triple threat
I could
for the
see
championship.
that was
I
what.
think it's going to be a championship match.
Yeah, that's what my vote was the triple threat with Bailey.
I can see either. What I'm thinking is it's going to be. I tend to think the Bloodline Randy KO match is somewhere in the middle, right? So you have a big match,
Yeah,
maybe the women's tag match as a little bit of a let up, Bloodline match. You're still going to have two back to back championship matches, which is tough, but with only five matches, that's just what it's going to be. Unless they're setting up one more match on SmackDown, you know, wouldn't put it past them to do that. A throw-in match, a throw-in match that brings you to six and gives you an extra spot for a let-up.
yeah. How long do you think this card goes? It starts at 1 o'clock our time.
3 hours.
Do you think 3 hours with five matches?
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
I think your Jay Damien match is probably
half hour.
at most 30. I was thinking closer to like 25, probably 20, 25.
Yeah.
Your triple threat with the women goes 30. So that's an hour. Your tag match probably only goes 20, right? Um,
If that, because
if that.
because they could just book it that Jade comes out and just steamrolls all of them again, right? Like kick to the gut,
Maybe.
power bomb, boom.
Yeah, maybe, but I think that'll go a little longer. I think they'll let that go. So that goes 20. So now we're at an hour and 20. Your Bloodline match probably goes a half hour. So that's 2 hours.
See, I was thinking the Bloodline thing's probably gonna go 45. I was thinking,
No, yeah, that's fine. So that could go 45. So now you're at 215 basically,
yeah,
and then another 40 for Cody
and
and AJ brings you to 33 hours. I mean, with promos in between matches and stuff, it's a little over three. So maybe some of those other matches are a little bit shorter. So
and entrances, right? Like if Cody has a big entrance,
entrances,
AJ's big entrance
yeah,
for a title fight, like Priest big entrance.
yeah. I don't think they do anything special for
No.
those entrances on this one. Yeah, I still think 3.5 hours. 3.5 has got to be your max. I bet.
Yeah,
It's only five matches, so
well, that's why I was thinking it could be under 3 because it's only 5 matches. Like they could get
yeah.
out with like 2 hours and 45 and still be okay what got
I think
with what got done at the card.
I think 45 is long for that bloodline match. I think it's closer to 30.
I was thinking 45 for the bloodline if it turns into a street fight, right? But then do we see Jacob as well? So it's like,
Well, those are all, yeah, those are all
right?
potentials,
Like
right? So, do we see that? What else do we see? Uh, yeah, I still
yeah,
think
because we're
three
not
is the
getting Roman and we're not getting Jimmy.
no.
So like, does Jay come and help out then? Like after he's done with Priest or before he's done with Priest? Like it's all over the place, right? Like it could get crazy just with 5 of them
Yeah,
because 2 or 3 of them are tied directly to each other. So like even
right.
if Cody wanted to come help out KO Norton, he could, you know what I mean? Like do something like that. But yeah, I mean, so do we think Bianca and Jade take the tag team titles?
Yes.
Yes, I do too.
I think it's a continuance of damage control just
Breaking apart. Yeah.
breaking apart. Yeah.
Yeah, because Bailey on Raw, I think she said this is the first step of, or no, Bianca or Jade said that this is the first step of destroying damage control. So it seems like it's leading that way. Um, Bloodline versus KO and Orton. Who do you have?
Bloodline.
Yeah, I think so too.
Probably because of interference if they debut Jacob. Um,
I'm so excited for that debut. Like just to see him throw somebody out of the ring, like the way he does so
yeah,
viciously, like
yeah,
it's gonna be awesome. Bailey versus Tiffany versus Naomi.
Bailey.
Yeah, I think Bailey keeps.
That's why it's a triple threat
Yeah, Damien
for sure.
versus Jay.
Damien. I think Jay's gonna take him to his limit, but it's gonna be Damien. Like it'll be a good showing for Jay. And maybe you get bloodline interference there too.
Yeah.
Just to kind of like you let Jay take Damien to a limit, but then Damien starts to recover, but then there's bloodline interference either way. And
So
then neither really takes a hit there.
so I was wondering with how much crap Damien's been talking to JD and um Dom, like if this is the opportunity where like Damien gets caught in this situation and JD and Dom say, "Oh, you told us you don't need us," and they kind of like leave him out there stranded, and then Jay hits it, and then that's kind of like that's the first building block of like starting to fall for Judgment Day, right? Like they don't got
Yeah.
Rhea there to keep everybody on the same page. Damien seems to be distracted by Liv. Um, and then all of a sudden, it's well, 1v1 for Judgment Day, and they're all staring at each other like, how the hell we get here? So
Yeah.
I hope not yet, because I think Damien deserves a chance to run with this title. I think if you need a workhorse, I think just like you did in Seth, I think Damien's the guy that can be it. I have concerns about Jay getting hurt because he has a checkered injury past before. Um, and obviously Cody versus AJ. Cody.
Oh yeah.
Clean, or you think something goes on?
Clean. I think and this is actually a long-term concern for me. I think a lot of Cody's matches going forward for the foreseeable future are going to follow a very similar pattern. They're going to just kind of sort of come out of nowhere, right? Whether it be a quick little tournament or some kind of weird challenge or some guy stepping up, and they're all going to follow a similar pattern of they'll get put on for whatever they're being put on for, and whoever it is going to have a good showing against Cody. Cody will go over clean in the end. People will get bored of that quickly. Is my concern.
No,
You know,
agreed.
so I don't. You know, this was always the fear, and this was the fear a year ago with WrestleMania. If he had won last year instead of this year, what's next?
Yep.
Right? And the Bloodline story is clearly evolving a certain way that has nothing to do with Cody.
Right.
Now, I'm sure they could always swerve that back a little bit because The Rock is going to come back at some point. So that will change everything a little bit. But after The Rock, then what? Like we've talked about it, Randy, like, and that could get interesting if they do it right. But right now, like AJ won a tournament, great, fine. He's gonna have a good match with him, I'm sure. Cody will go over clean, and then the next guy up, and it'll be the same thing, and the next guy up until The Rock comes back, and then after that, until the next big story comes along. So I think they have to be careful with that, but you know, no interference yet. I think what happens when it gets to like maybe Randy turning on him or something like that, it's going to happen the night after a pay per view, right? Where Randy comes out, congratulates him maybe, or they do something,
And then he gets an
and
RKO.
boom, he gets an RKO, and we're off to the races, right? Or Brock, does Brock randomly come in if he's still possible, like
Yeah.
he just shows up one day and is like, listen, I, shook your hand and all that, but you have something I want that I couldn't get from Roman, you know?
Yeah.
Because Brock never beat Roman. Well, Brock didn't beat Roman for all those years.
No, that's true. That's a good.
Um,
That's a good thought. I wasn't thinking Brock, but yeah, that's the problem, right? Like they don't have anybody to throw Cody right now because whoever they could throw is hurt. Roman's away, like you said. Rock's away, like you said. Um, Brock is doing God know what in whatever bathroom he's in right now. Um, so it's like, where do they go, right? And it's not Jay because Cody gave Jay the hug to basically say Raw is now your show. Enjoy your show. Like, you know what I mean? So they're not going to take Jay off of that. Um, they're not going to take Drew away from Punk as good as Drew and Punk were on Monday night, and Punk is walking around swinging that arm and he doesn't have the brace anymore. And it doesn't look like there's atrophy with that arm to where it's smaller than his other arm. So PT must have been going very well, well for Punk because if he's not ready to go, he sure as hell looks like he's gonna be pretty soon. Um, so they're not gonna break that up, right? Because that's gonna be probably the hottest thing they have for a while. Um, I mean, so it's like you get in a tough predicament here of like, yeah, this Cody thing was good for 2-3 years. So what do we have? Like,
yeah.
what's going on now? Like that type of, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. I don't know. I don't know what I would do, to be honest with you. I don't know if, yeah, I don't know what I would do, but
there's a blogger out there that thinks Jacob Fatu is going to join the Roman Reigns side of this bloodline feud and not the solo Rock side of it.
so I thought about that. But then does that mean they're gonna bring in Jacob's brother when his career is done? Because I think his brother has one more year left, but then you got to wait a full year to bring in Jacob's brother.
Well, either that or you just find another guy of Samoan descent or similar, right? Like Tama Tonga is related to Haku, who's not technically in the bloodline, but
But he's on the
no
family
name.
tree.
Not Haku.
He's on the Rocks Wikipedia family tree. You gotta believe it. It's
Okay.
on Wikipedia.
Okay. First of all, screw you, because was it last episode or 2 episodes ago when I used Wikipedia and you scorched earth me over it? Like, so
It's
take
interesting.
your wik take your Wikipedia and put it with your squared circle redditors. Like, get out of here.
So,
Like,
do you think it's more? See, I was thinking that too, but I was going back and forth because I thought it would be more likely that they got the Uso brothers back together, right? Like, because technically they said if they were ever to be towards the end of their WWE career, they would want to wrestle each other once at WrestleMania. They got that done. Now, is this like them coming full circle that they're going to get one last run together? And then we're going to see them take time off for a bit or disappear for a bit? Because they've been at it full time for a while now. Like, let's not, like, pretend that they haven't, but it's like, so then,
no, but I mean,
so
I
then
don't
is
know.
it
Some of
like the
these guys,
original bloodline versus, I don't, it's tough,
yeah, I
right?
mean,
It's,
I think we're leading up to obviously Rock versus Roman eventually, right?
yeah.
Whether that's next year or the year after. I think you're trying to get there, and to do that, you need two bloodline factions, and the original bloodline was the three of them, right? Roman, Jimmy, and Jay. Um, Solo came in later. Obviously, Jacob has never been a part of it. Tama has now come in on the solo side of it. The Rock was always out there in the ether when it came to the bloodline. So it seemingly would be Jimmy and Jay get back together, right? They make up, and then Roman comes back and he's going to be an ultra babyface when he gets back. I mean, the crowd is already like
Yeah, we want
just
Roman.
clamoring for him, which, I mean, talk about what a slide of a career he had from when the WWE couldn't get you to like him or hate him, right? Like, wanted nothing to do with him, to becoming the hottest heel and part of the best storyline in years, to ending that story, and he's going to come back as the biggest baby face. Like, and they're going to want him to be champion again. It's going to get real interesting. But um, so I think the natural thing would be, yeah, Jimmy and Jay flock to Roman, Solo and Tama flock to The Rock. So now Jacob's here, but he's an odd man in this equation. So there needs to be at least one more. And I don't know where Jacob goes.
So,
Like, they could also do a thing where, I mean, any of them could do this where Jacob could debut for one side and switch sides as part of the master plan, right? Like,
So the
you
one
know.
rumor I'm reading right now is basically Jacob comes in, he helps protect Paul, but then he tries to act as like a mediator between both sides of the bloodlines. So like he's the guy,
Yeah, and then
like
eventually he's gonna have
have
to
to
pick
pick a
side.
sides. Yeah,
Yeah,
I could
yeah,
definitely see that happening.
that would be good
Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
I think they could do that, right? Because then like, yeah, it's interesting. Um,
I mean, Jacob. So he is. Yeah, so he's their cousin. He's Rikishi's nephew.
mhm.
I'm trying to look of who else there is out there.
Jacob has a brother out there who's signed to Booker T school. I think it's a brother.
It's so hard to like follow all this because also like the years are all screwy too because like these guys procreated at so many different stages in life. It's like Jacob's a cousin, but like
Zilla.
what?
Zilla Fatu. That's who Maga's son.
Okay.
I'm trying to see what his contract's like right now.
Well, like I'm looking on this and like technically Jacob's cousin is is Lloyd. It's L.A. Smooth. He's 53,
Hmm.
but he is in the generation based on where his parents were with Jacob and Jimmy and Jay, which is, you know, I mean, I don't know how old they are, but they're not 53.
Yeah, so Zilla made his GCW
38.
debut January 26th at Look at Me. Yeah. So he's at least with GCW right now. I don't know if it's like full time or what, but
There's Lance. He's in MLW.
yeah, I mean it's possible,
30.
right? Like,
He's 32. He's technically like, guess he'd be like a nephew almost. Like, I don't know.
see, but then Zilla Fatu has already pitched the idea of him and Jacob joining Jey Uso on Raw tribal warfare against the Bloodline. This was back last September. Look at him trying to get booked. Good for you, Zilla. So yeah, it's interesting, right? Because they do have a couple other guys that they could pull from. AEW was supposedly going to try and reach out to Zilla as of February, March. I read. So it'll be interesting because I don't know what he would do there. Like, I think the ultimate move for him is to come to WWE, and then if he eventually wants to go to AEW, I'm sure he'll be able to get there. But yeah, and I guess Zilla's been hanging out with Punk too as of April 17th. So he's been around everybody. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting, man, for sure. So yeah. Anyways, um,
It's gonna be fun. Either way, it's gonna be fun
yeah,
to watch.
yeah. I mean, just let them go, right? Especially Jacob and Zilla. Like those two guys can go, and they go hard. Like they don't care what happens to their bodies. So should be interesting. But yeah, yeah, that's all I had for WWE and wrestling in general tonight. Dan, was there anything else you want to talk about, sir?
I don't think so.
I think we still got to do an episode for the belt legacy. The people have been clamoring for you to talk about
Oh,
New
that's
Day.
right. That's right. I was supposed to talk about this on this episode.
On an upcoming episode, we will do this.
I mean, we can do this next episode because there's not going to be a lot of news by
No.
the next time either, most likely at
And
least.
do you think a lot is going to result from Backlash?
No.
I don't think so either.
I think the only thing that really develops is the bloodline a little bit, maybe. And then, um, maybe we get something that develops Jade and what's going on with them a little bit more. But otherwise, no.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's nothing here. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, right?
And
Like it's should be interesting. We still got some stuff to work with, so hopefully it stays somewhat fresh and we're able to go. But yeah, so that's all
we
we had.
will. We will get into the belt things because the tag belts too have a different legacy now. So
Okay, so you just
we'll,
want to
we'll
rant
get into
for
that.
2 hours. All right, that a boy.
I don't want to rant. I just want to. I just want
You want
them
to
to.
rant? I get it. I get it.
I just the preview for this episode that's coming up is going to be that of all the little things that this company thinks of and takes care of, some days it frustrates me that they don't take care of belt like lineage that well.
And then we should just clip it there of me putting the headphones down, getting up, and walking away. Stay tuned.
I mean, listen, you're over here complaining about Tony moving his neck too much, but title lineage isn't a big deal to you. Like, come on, pick and choose. Like, you can't pick and choose what you care about for little issues. Like
Anyways,
Tony breaking kayfabe is like a big problem for you,
it
but a
is.
title lineage that makes no
It's
sense
still real
is
to me,
no big
Dan.
deal.
It's still real to me.
Then the title lineage should be too. What's more real than the lineage of these titles?
You know, I'm gonna have to cut part of this ending now. We're already.
No, you're not.
I,
Listen, for all those, this is the best part of listening to this. So I hope everybody stayed to the end to hear the ranting because the ranting is the best. Listen, what is some of the most popular segments ever in Busted Open history? It's Dave
oh,
LaGreca going on a rant,
whoa, and
right?
in a pink robe. I gotta get a pink robe.
But I mean, him going on rants is legendary at
It
times.
is.
And he's among the best in the business when it comes to this. So
It is. You're right. You're right, my friend. All right. So yeah, that you now know what cluster of an episode you have to look forward.
it's gonna
Anyways,
be great.
episode 28, Botched Wrestling Podcast in the books. I'm Jim. That's Dan. Like, comment, subscribe, and follow the Buzzards, because we're gonna be there soon with Uncle Howdy. So, adios, everybody.
Goodbye.
Get wild. Get wild. Get wild. Get wild.